Sandra here from Here in Ridge, and I'm really excited today to share with you our Kokedama kit that we've put together. So each kit comes with all the supplies you need to make a Kokedama. Kokedama is a Japanese form of gardening, and it's a moss kind of garden. So what we're doing is we're planting this plant inside a combination of soils, and then we're wrapping it with moss and fishing twine to hold it all together. And it makes for a really neat little gardening piece. Great for in your home. So first off, let's talk about your supplies. So you will in your kit receive your super moss, which is really dry and kind of crispy till we get it wet. And you're also going to receive the soil will be mixed in a container, but what's in there, just to give you a breakdown, is 2 parts peat moss, 1 part bonsai soil. Now bonsai soil is a really gravelly mixture, quite sandy, that's in there. And then peat moss is really super fluffy soil, really light and absorbs a ton of water. So we've got those 2 soils that get mixed together to make our Kokedama soil ball. And like I said, we've got our super moss, and then you need to pick a plant. Now you can pick an ivy, there's a few different ferns that we have, a spider plant. The key is really going to be that when you go to put your plant in your Kokedama is that you have to get mostly just roots and get rid of all this soil. So you're going to want to have a plant with nice established roots, but we're going to work at that later, getting all that soil out of there. Again, I would say pick a plant that suits the spot in your home where you want to put your Kokedama. That's generally the best rule for house plants specifically. Okay, this is a cute one. Look at this little button fern. I love him. Anyway, so now I've talked about the soil, talked about the moss, and we also have fishing line. Now in the past we have used cord as well, but we found that any sort of fabric cord tends to break down with all the moisture from the ball. So a nylon cord or a fishing line seems to work really well. And the thing I really like about the fishing line on these is it pretty much disappears. You can't even see it at all. It is a little trickier to knot and to get started at the project, but I think if you just take your time, you shouldn't have any issue at all. Our kit just comes with the supplies for the Kokedama, so you're going to want to have probably a tray to set it on, or maybe a fancy tea saucer or something like that. Or if it's on a kitchen counter, it's fine, probably just to sit on the counter. It will be wet after you water it, so you certainly don't want to put it onto a wooden surface like that, or you will damage your furniture, okay? So to get started with, we're going to take our super moss, and we're actually just going to put it in a pail of water. Now, like I said, super moss is really crispy when you get it, but as soon as you get it wet, it just turns to the softest stuff you've ever seen. It's really cool. Okay, and we're just gonna let that sit in there while we do the rest of our Kokedama. Now, you're gonna wanna get a pail to mix your soil into, okay? I think a round pail is best because we're gonna make a ball, and it's just easiest to scoop it and make a ball if you've got a round pail. You can use a square pail, it'll work, but you definitely want it, you need a pail and something without holes in it. And you're just gonna put your soils in there and give them a little mix. And like I said, it's really dry when you get it. And then you need to add water to your mixture. Now, you don't wanna add too much water. You can always put a bit more in. But like I said, that peat moss really absorbs a lot of water, so it doesn't take long. And it gets kind of muddy feeling. Bit of a messy job, so like I said, if you've been missing your girlfriends, now's the time to have a little gardening party in the backyard. Leave all the mess outside, or maybe in your garage if you really want to be indoors if it's raining or dark out. Okay, this is still too dry, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. Mix it up. And once you get it the right texture, it kind of starts to stick together and feel muddy. Okay, this is starting to feel better. Hold on. Oh, I should have put my hair in a ponytail. It's making me a little crazy. Now a little more. Okay, now, people with bigger hands are going to have an easier time with this project. People with little hands are going to have to be a little more patient. Okay? Because what you're going to do is you're going to take this whole big lump of stuff and you're going to form it into a ball. And it's going to squish out. That's totally cool. Like I said, it's a messy project, best done outdoors. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is I'm going to keep adding out of my bucket and keep squishing it on, okay? You should have about enough soil in your kit to make 1 Kokedama ball. If you end up with a little bit left over, not the end of the world, but you should try to get as much in there as you can. more you squish it, the easier it'll be to break it in half in a second, okay? Okay, that's just about perfect. Okay, now here comes the crazy part. I'm gonna break this in half. Okay. And all I really do is I just kind of squish my thumbs and my baby fingers. Ta-da! If yours doesn't break perfectly, don't worry about it. It's all good. I'm just gonna set it down here very gently. And now I'm gonna take my plant. Which one am I gonna use? Maybe I'm gonna use this ivy. I think the ivy will look cool, really drapey. And like I said, you have to pull all the soil off as much as you can. So you don't want to damage the roots if you can avoid it, but you can pull them apart. Give it a little shake. Just kind of move it around with your fingers. Try to get out as much of that potting soil as you can without damaging the roots too badly. But you want to get as much out as possible because this is going to go in the center of your Kokedama ball. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty much just roots and plant there. There we go. Okay, now here comes the really interesting part. We're gonna squish it back in the middle of our soil ball, okay? So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay my roots in there, pick up one half. I'm gonna put the other half on top. Okay, now, it's not gonna go back together perfectly and that's okay. So, I still can see the cracks. That's totally cool with me. I'm actually just gonna set it kind of on that pot for a minute till I get my moss, okay? Moss. Remember how dry and crumbly it was? Check it out now. It's like a great big sponge. Now, this I think is actually gonna be more moss than I need. I'm gonna pull it all out. Squish as much water out as you can. It'll be easier to work with, okay? It'll still stay soft because there is moisture in there, but you want to get rid of as much excess as you can. And this had a lot of extra thick stuff on the back. I'm just gonna pull that. Okay, hold on. If this is too much, if I don't need it all, I'll just rip it off as I'm done, but you'll see in a second. So I'm gonna put this here on my work surface. Okay. Get rid of my watering can. And now I'm gonna put my little dirt ball, in the middle, and I'm gonna wrap up the sides. Yeah, and I've got way too much. Look at all this over here. I'm actually, oh, my ball fell apart. I'm gonna just rip this part off here because it's just too much. So that's all extra. Squish my ball back together. Keeps wanting to split apart. Okay, now again, this is like a tremendous amount of super moss. So I'm just gonna take what I need and I'm gonna pull the rest off because I just don't need that much. And it's gonna make it for a really gigantic ball. Which, I mean, if you like it, have at her, folks. Okay, so it's gonna continue to form as I wrap it with my fishing line, okay? But we're gonna give that a good squish like that. Kinda cool, kinda cool. Okay, so in your kit also you'll have a little piece of cardboard like this with fishing line on it. There's about 30 feet on here, which I figure is about what you need, give or take. So what I do is I make a pretty big loop. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's fishing line, but I make a pretty big loop and I just tie a knot so that I end up with a big kind of hole, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pass my paddle through. Okay, so here's my loop. I put my paddle through here so that I end up with a circle. Okay, so now I've got this circle here. If you don't want to do it this way, you can wrap it around and tie a good old-fashioned knot. Whatever works for you. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. I just find if I have a loop that I pass my thread through, or my twine, my fishing line through, I can make it tighter. Now what you have to do is you have to really just pick it up and keep wrapping and pulling. Now, your fishing line, it does have a weight limit on it. So if you pull it as tight as you possibly can, you're gonna snap it. Then you have to re-knot it, and that's a huge pain. So you wanna pull it tight, but you don't have to squeeze the life out of it, okay? Now, if you have a whole roll of fishing line, I find this actually is a little bit easier with the spindle. It comes off a little nicer. We're just gonna work with what we've got. You're gonna wanna go over the shoulders, okay? By the shoulders, I mean like the top here by the plant, so that you can make that nice and tight at the top. Just gonna unwrap a bit more, so there's a bit more here to work with. Okay, so I'm gonna go over that left side, and then I'm gonna go over the right side. Now, by doing that, I also am going around the bottom, right? So you're just really trying to wrap this around as many times as you can to get that nice and tight. Now, kokedamas, when you go to water them, I find the easiest thing to do is just put them in a bowl or in a sink and fill it with water, and then put it on a drain tray or something that it can drip out of until the most of it starts to drip out. And then like I said, you're gonna have to have a tray or a pretty saucer or something to set it on. The other thing you can do, which is kind of cool, is you can make out of a yarn or macrame cord would be a hanger. These look really cool hanging in a window or in a bathroom. Now, if you're feeling it's not very round, just squish it and change the shape of it a bit. Mine was kind of oblong on the one side. Okay. And once I get close to the end of my cord, here's the other tricky part, is knotting it. And all I find the easiest way to do it is to just find a spot, and it really doesn't matter where you can get your fingernail or something underneath one little piece of fishing line. Again, don't pull too hard, but you want to get the line with the end underneath the line that's wrapped around your kokedama so that you can tie a knot. And if you get it under more than one, that's cool too, okay? But you just have to knot it off. Like I said, the knotting part is maybe the trickiest bit of the whole thing. The knot at the beginning and the knot at the end. And if you have any little tails at the end, just trim them off with your scissors once you've got it all knotted. Perfect. Okay. And let's have a look. That's a pretty sweet little kokedama. Just like that. Awesome. So that's our little kokedama workshop that we've put together for you. Like I said, it's a great project if you've got a bunch of girlfriends that you're used to going out with, and right now with COVID you haven't been able to do that. Set up in the backyard, get yourselves each a kit, and it would be a fun evening. Pour a glass of wine, enjoy. Also a great project to send off with maybe one of your university students. Maybe you can have a little decorate your dorm at home night or something like that. Lots of different ideas. Kokedama projects are really fun. Like I said, a little bit messy, so you might want to find a spot outdoors, but otherwise it's great fun and you'll have a beautiful houseplant for a long time.